Hey everyone, Ryan Young, KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. I hope you're doing well. The mat bully. We've all come across them. Well, hopefully we haven't, and I hope you haven't. I have. And what is a mat bully? Mat bully can be at your school, or he can just be somebody who comes around and trains whenever you're training. Maybe he comes to open mat. Maybe he's the guy that really nobody wants to train with, but for some reason, you're the one that ends up stuck with him. Now, what is a mat bully? A mat bully will typically, I guess we can define him by what kind of stuff he might do. Let's say you're training in a class and it's a sparring session and time runs out. And when the buzzer goes off, you stop and you know, whatever you're going for, you stop. Or let's say you're in a bad position and the mat bully happens to be on top of you. When the buzzer goes off, he holds it just for 1/2 a second longer, right? He doesn't stop right when the bell goes off, or maybe a full second longer. You know, I had one a while back where, you know, this cat he was bigger, he was stronger than me. He'd always go for the kimura from the side mount, right? Where I'm laying on my side and he's just trying to take my top arm in a kimura. But I had to defend it pretty well, so he could never get it. I could defend it so well, he could literally pick me up off the ground by my arm, and I would get up and I'd end up putting my feet on the ground and I'd get out of the kimura that way, if need be. Well, one time he and I are training, the instructor at the time had called a stop because he wasn't making any progress. He was fighting for it, and it wasn't happening. So maybe after about a minute or so, the instructor finally tells him, okay guys, stop. So the second he said stop, I relaxed my arm, and he went and took my arm and he cranked it back and something went pop in my bicep, and it was sore. You know, the instructor is like, hey, what are you doing, right? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you sucker. It was probably a second, you know, from the time that we heard stop, I released my protection of my arm, and he goes bang and takes my hand back and snaps it. In fact, I know this guy's name was Jeff. And you know, I would train with this guy periodically. I was a purple belt, he was a blue belt. Much faster, stronger, about 10 years younger than me. Construction worker, right? So he was strong, whereas I was just an officer. I just worked in an office. I had a desk job. And but he'd always want to get together and train. You know, he had mats at his house, and you know, it was a small school at the time, so we figured, you know what? He's a training partner, so I'll go and train with him. While we were training at his house, you know, he'd go after me, and I didn't care. You know, he'd go after stuff, and you know, I could protect myself. But it was at one time when we were over at the teacher's house, at the instructor's house, and when the instructor said to stop, he went on and he you know, popped something. I don't know what it was. I mean, I healed from it. I didn't die, but I never trained with him again. That was it. I just thought to myself, you know, you're a dick. I'm never gonna train with you again, and I never did. I could train with anybody I wanted to at the time. You know, I had mats at my house, and people always want to come over and train. So finding training partners wasn't a problem for me. You know, especially, you know, guys want to train with a purple belt, like, okay. And he was no different. But except for the fact that he was a mat bully. And you know, he would do it to other people, but it just really didn't work on me, per se, because I could defend myself. You know, when I put my guard down, that's when he took advantage of it. So guys can come like that into a school, you know, try to assert themselves. You know, they're weak-minded. You know, they have to win all the time. They're not there to learn the art. They're there to beat people. And that's how they measure themselves, by how many people they beat. And, you know, those type of people, they get good up to a certain point. And then nobody wants to train with them anymore. And a lot of instructors don't want to teach them anymore. So it ends up being to their detriment. So now what do you do when somebody is like that in your studio? Well, I guess you have to check with your instructor. For me and for Dave, we don't let it happen in our studio. We don't tolerate that. You know, we'll have a talk with the person. You know, if it's malicious, then you know they're out. You know, if they even got to be in the gym. But after you know someone, accidents happen, right? You know, you just have to kind of realize, was it an accident or was it deliberate? And 99.5% of the time, meaning 5 times out of 1,000, an injury or something will happen because of an accident. The remaining 5 times out of 1,000, meaning it doesn't happen very often, the remaining 5 times out of 1,000 is because the guy's a dick. Those are the guys that need to be weeded out. So a school that's full of them, here's the way they'll typically deal with it. A bully will get smashed by a bigger bully. And hopefully that'll teach that bully a lesson, right? Being bullied, right? So what it was, in my mind, what ends up happening is that you end up creating a pecking order. It's just whoever's the biggest bully has to be the benevolent bully. And it isn't always the case. You know, if there's more than one bully, chances are it's because the instructor's a bully himself. And I do know of a school that's like that. It's fine, right? It doesn't bother me that his school is like that because that's his demographic, whereas that's not our demographic. So bullies like that, they're not tolerated in our school. They're usually not brought on to begin with, but if they somehow get through the filter, then they'll be gone shortly after. But I can't say in my mind when I think about it that really one has gotten past the initial filter. Another, so that's another way to deal with it. If you're in a school where there are no bullies and maybe a new guy becomes one or is one, but he got past the filter, that's where you just talk to the instructor and let the instructor know, hey, have you ever trained with this guy before? And he's going, what do you mean? Well, he's kind of a dick. Oh, really? In what way? So you tell him, and the instructor will go, I don't know, let me have a talk with him. So he'll have a talk with him to kind of figure out what's going on with the situation, and then that instructor will then make a determination as far as whether or not this person needs to be in the school or out of the school. If it's a school like ours, we don't tolerate it because we don't like that kind of environment. That's an environment where people end up not wanting to come to class because they don't want to end up being matched up with that student. It's one thing being a bully, but everybody's an individual and we're all different. And there are going to be some people that rub other people the wrong way, but they're rubbing them the wrong way. How? Is it if they're bullying them? Yeah, well, then that means they're going to rub a lot of other people the wrong way. So yeah, they shouldn't be in there. What if a person has some sort of quirk to them that they can't really help? Then it's the job of the school instructor or the head instructor, whatever, the one who calls the shots, to determine whether or not this person is worth having in the school. What I end up telling people is this: look, you're coming to a group class, and in a group class, you have all different types of people, and people run the gamut. And I tell them, I go, look, you're in that gamut too, right? You might, today you might be complaining about this person who, after I looked at it, is not a bully. He's just, there's something about him, right? Like say, maybe they could have a brain injury for all I know. And something that makes them maybe slow and, hey, I don't want to partner with this guy because he's just hard to deal with. He doesn't get it. Okay, well, we'll switch the partners here and there, but if you want to be able to choose your partner, you either come to a different class time or you go sign up for privates, right? Because a group class is a group class. Right? When we're in elementary school, we don't get to pick the kids that we're in class with. It gets picked for us. When everybody's a paying consumer, then that's just kind of how the way it is in school. But if you need to, go ahead and avoid the bully. If it's worth being in the school despite the bully being there. Now, if there are a lot of bullies, then yeah, that's a school. Then you might just need to find another school. But if it's just one bully and the instructor has a good reason for having him in the school, then you just have to kind of deal with it. I hate to say it or put it that way, but you just kind of do. On the other hand, if the instructor's making a bad call, then that's bad on him because what's going to happen is that one bully can end up driving away a lot of students. So this happened to a friend of mine, and I'm not saying that he brought in bullies, but he has to make his nut every month. He has to pay his bills. I think he had mostly professionals for the first group and started to bring in some younger guys who wanted to be fighters. So they train differently. They'll train harder, they'll train faster, they'll train more aggressively. And what happened was these students ended up driving out the old students. So the old students are now gone. His school complexion changed in the course of a couple of months. It went from being a school that was largely catering to middle-aged people like him, like the instructor, to people that are 20, 25 years old, all looking to be MMA fighters. I don't know if that's what he intended, but that's what happened. Maybe the professionals might have looked at these guys as, well, they're kind of aggressive, and and maybe in their minds, maybe they kind of felt like they were bullies, but maybe those kids weren't bullies, they just trained differently. And that's why it's so important for a school owner to know what kind of market he teaches, what kind of market best resonates with him, and then look to attract those types of students. There's a saying in marketing that I heard a while back, and the saying is there's riches in niches, which means that you don't necessarily have the most success by being a general practitioner. So if you imagine your medical field, the general practitioner doctors, your pediatricians, your internal medicine doctors, and your general practitioners, right? Those are the ones that are not specialists. They're generalists. When you really look at them, those are the ones that are working the hardest to earn their money. Those are the ones that work 12-hour days. Those are the ones that have waiting rooms full of patients that they need to meet. And they're fighting for that $10, $25 copay, right? Their assistants are very, very, very good about making sure they collect it right then and there, right? Versus sending you a bill later on, right? And those are the ones where if you're sick, you call up and you say, hey, I'd like to come in for an appointment. I'm feeling kind of sick. And they'll say, well, yeah, you can come in next week. It's like, wait a minute, today's Monday. Next week, like next Monday? Well, yeah, I have an opening for you at Monday at, let's say 10 a.m. Man, I work at 8 a.m. Can't I come in today? Well, you can come in, but you're gonna have to just kind of come in as a walk-in. I've done that before, and I went to a doctor once and I sat in that waiting room for 3.5 hours before they came to see me. It was horrible. I ended up going to another doctor that day because I wasn't about to go next week because I'm gonna suffer for the entire week to go see them. Getting back to the point about the school owner. If the school owner is trying so hard to bring in all the different students he can, he's gonna take anybody's money. Then what'll happen is he'll end up having a diverse group of students, meaning he's not catering to a certain demographic or a certain niche. Let's say you're a great coach for fighters. Then it only makes sense that you would have fighters in your studio. Or let's say you're a great motivator for people who have always been couch potatoes their whole lives. You're good at getting people off of their butts and working. Perhaps you should go for those types of students, whereas the self-starters may not really be in your realm of expertise, and vice versa. Or maybe you have a specialty for, in fact, there's a gym out here in Dallas that has a specialty of working with amputees, right? Veterans. That's their niche, right? If a veteran who's an amputee, is kind of feeling down on the low, then you send them over to this guy, and he knows how to motivate you. He knows how to bring you back up out from the abyss. He works well with that. I don't know if there's a video once I did where I was wearing a shirt with a 22 on it, right? That's for 22 Kill. And 22 Kill is a foundation, tries to bring awareness to and intervenes with veterans who are on the verge of having a breakdown because on average 22 veterans a day kill themselves, they commit suicide. But anyway, so these types of organizations, they're specialists, they work with that kind. So when running a school, you have to realize what your demographic is and you need to work with your demographic. Try not to be a jack of all trades, because what happens is you end up losing a lot of people who would fall perfectly in with your style of teaching. It's not to say that bully may not have a place in your studio. That bully may have a place in the studio, just not in yours. Help him find a place where he can work out well, where he can get a good workout and he can be amongst other high drive type individuals. In summary, you're in a school that's full of these so-called mat bullies, then you may need to get out. On the other hand, if you're in a school that's full of people that have no bullies and one is now in there, you need to talk to the instructor so the instructor can get him out. Otherwise, that one rotten apple will poison all the rest. And that instructor needs to be made it known to him that this one person can cause him to lose a lot of other students, which are more important in the long run to him, provided they're within his niche. Well, I hope that was helpful and answered your question about the mat bullies. And but in no means am I the guy who would advocate having a mat bully beaten up. That doesn't solve anything. That just, like I said, it takes a bully to beat up a bully, and in that way. I'm not saying that you let it go untolerated if they hurt somebody. At the end of the day, we're not a fight club. We're a jiu-jitsu school, and a jiu-jitsu school is a business, and it needs to be run like a business. Anyway, like and subscribe, and hit the links below if you want to help the channel out. We really appreciate it. Take care. Happy training. Bye-bye now.